America's workforce. Its strength is our nation's success. Join Ronnie Spellman on I Build America podcast as we explore innovative solutions and inspiring stories from leaders and workers shaping America. Discover actionable insights to build a motivated workforce.
I build America.
Welcome to the program where we talk about workforce development and how we can continue to build the workforce of the future here in the United States. I have an absolute veteran with us on the program who flew in from Texas to Arizona to join us.
That's right.
Bobby Brown, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, Ronnie.
I am amazed. I've seen your background. I've visited your facility that you manage. You're a center director in McKinney, Texas, just north of Dallas. But you've lived across the country helping to build programs and workforce development for a variety of different communities. You've been in this for 30 years now.
30 years.
That is incredible. So you have an amazing history and an amazing story to tell about successes and creating great outcomes for our young people that are looking to build careers. But tell me about what you're doing now, the facility you operate, and what impact you're making today.
I work at the North Texas Job Corps Center. I serve as a center director. I've been there since June of 2021. Okay. It's been 3.5 years. I came there during the pandemic, and we've built up from that time. We've been able to establish a lot of new programs. I know you're very familiar with the aviation work that we've been doing there. That's our pride and joy at North Texas, and we're looking to continue to do more with aviation.
Let's start there then, because the aviation industry has and continues to grow. People are traveling now all across the country more than I think they had decades ago, and they're traveling around the world because it's easy now. The planes are incredible. The planes are sophisticated. The travel experience, I know that people have to go through a lot of security measures now, but from a technology and a plane perspective, it's amazing how you can fly around the globe. So to have a program for an industry that needs workers like the aviation, tell me about why you created it and what you're doing to get young people ready to work in that segment.
Ronnie, I wish I could tell you that I created it because I didn't, but I could tell you how it came to be, the truth of it. And quite honestly, I probably have gotten more credit for it than I really deserve. But what happened is when I came to North Texas, Department of Labor had told me that, look, we've had feelers from aviation industry, and they're looking for people to work as airframe and powerplant mechanics, and they've learned about Job Corps. And mind you, this was during the pandemic, and I had no idea what that looked like, what to do. I didn't know anybody. But what happened was DOL kept calling me, Bobby, have you done anything? And I started getting phone calls from other people in the industry. And we had several meetings. We had a lot of stop-starts, a lot of frustration. But what happened was that nobody gave up.
Right.
And I think along the way, it got me to the point that no matter what's happened, we're going to see this thing through and make it a reality at North Texas. So the people didn't let me quit or give up on it, and that drove me to persistence of making it happen.
So what I'd love for you to do, though, is describe what the aviation program does and who is benefiting. So I know Job Corps serves a specific population, but for anyone listening, let's give them a recap on what Job Corps is and how that aviation program sits on top. But here's something that's important, I think, for people to know just geographically. With you being in North Texas, you have two major airlines headquartered in that area. You have the Southwest Airlines and American Airlines, both headquartered in that Dallas region. And then you have the Dallas Airport, the Dallas International Airport, DFW, that's based there as well. And it's I think currently it's the second busiest airport in the country, only behind Atlanta, and they're vying to become number one. And then something else that's unique is in that same market, you have Amazon with their airline based in that area for all of their distribution. So there's a huge need, and then on top of that, you have the Boeing repair operations based there, plus a lot of other companies that do airplane related repairs. But it's a big market for that industry, so I get why that area was pushing to get something developed because they needed workers.
You said a lot there. I'll try to respond to all of that, but I'll share a little bit about Job Corps,
sure,
and more specifically North Texas Job Corps. So we've been in that location since 1966.
Oh, wow.
The program started out as an all-female training program and evolved through the years to take males, and it grew. It's actually one of the largest Job Corps centers in the country.
Fascinating.
So we offer multiple career pathways in healthcare, construction trades, and several other training programs. There has not been an aviation program in all of Job Corps anywhere but North Texas.
Wow. So there are 121 Job Corps across the country.
Correct.
And there's only one aviation program, and that's in your facility.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. And as you mentioned, we are in an area where there's a lot of planes flying up and down. And what I learned from people in the industry, that the workforce is an aging workforce, and unfortunately not very diverse.
Right.
So the people that I work with and Department of Labor really were interested in having a more diversified population of folks working in that industry. That's how they found out about Job Corps and the opportunity for Job Corps to provide talent that's so desperately needed in the aviation industry.
That is incredible that you have a program. So what else does your facility, you said it's the largest. Is it 30 plus acres, right? If
we're on 93 acres.
93 acres.
93
oh my gosh,
acres.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, so we serve 562 students. Wow. at Max. We have a staff of 236 people. We are a residential program. Our students live on the campus. They live, eat, and that's their lives. They go home on the weekends, but we provide soft skills training, high school diplomas. And, Ronnie, when I was sitting out there, I was thinking about the first time we met, and I just wanted to, and it kind of ties into what we're talking about here. I'll never forget something we talked about. I've shared it with people a bunch of times. We actually talked about a couple things that stand out, but I'll never forget, we were talking about warehousing, and I know we're talking about aviation here, and I was telling you about the challenges of Job Corps with equipment and not being able to keep up with current industry equipment, what they use and whatnot, and what you said to me, that really wasn't even important, that people were looking for people with good workforce skills.
Absolutely. That
can follow directions, willing to learn, and that it didn't matter what the training tools were, but those skills were what employers were looking for.
Absolutely.
And that was important to me because I had got caught up into reasons why maybe things couldn't be done and kind of got away from what really was important. I needed to hear that from you.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm
so
glad.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. How did you end up getting into Job Corps? You spent your life trying to serve others through these programs.
How did I start Job Corps?
Well,
you sure you want to hear? You want to hear the truth?
We'd love to hear it.
All right. So, I worked at a homeless shelter before working in Job Corps, and I worked there for 5 years. And I ended up being a facility director. I started out as a maintenance supervisor. It was my first supervisor job, and during that time, I guess you would call it burnout. What I saw, and this was in Detroit, Michigan, I started seeing the same people and the same kids coming back. And I remember a lady came in, had a newborn child. And during the time I was there, I watched that kid grow from coming in and out of that shelter once a year. And I knew I needed to get away from that. I wanted to do something else. So I quit.
Okay.
And I didn't have a job. So I applied for this place called Job Corps.
Right.
I was an electrician by trade and a boiler operator.
Okay.
So I went to Job Corps in Detroit, interviewed to become a trade instructor. And the person who ended up hiring me, he offered me the job. And after I interviewed, I looked around at the environment. I'm like, I don't want to work here. It's not for me. So he offered me the job. I turned it down. And subsequently, he called me 3 times, persistent.
Right.
He said, I really want you to give this a shot. So after turning it down, I said, okay, I'll try it out. Okay. And that's how I started out. And quite frankly, I wasn't very good at it for my first couple years because I came in like I was a boss and not a teacher.
Sure.
And interesting thing, too, what I found out my first year there, that when I was in the shelter, I used to get these kids that my boss would send to me to help train them, to show them the ropes and work for me and my staff.
Right.
And I didn't realize till I worked for Job Corps that those were Job Corps students.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of come full circle on that I had experience with Job Corps students and didn't even know it. But the people I work with didn't want to work with them because they said they wouldn't follow direction and all the typical things you hear about young people. But I enjoyed working with them. But
what was your transition moment after you reached Job Corps where you went from being a boss? You said you came in as a boss. What flipped for you? Like, when did you realize I need to do something different in order for me to have a good experience, but also for me to benefit these people coming into the center?
Ronnie, I had some hard truths. It wasn't me. It was a mentor.
Okay.
Another instructor told me, he said, Bobby, look, you've been here over a year now. You know you're going to get fired.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because you don't get good results.
Okay.
And your students don't like you very much. And he that's the way he talked to me. And he's a good friend of mine to this day. And that was an eye-opener for me. He was a good instructor, one of the best I've ever been around to this day. And it hurt me to the core, and that was my wake-up call that I want to be here. I like what I'm doing, and it's good work to be around Job Corps and the purpose and mission of Job Corps. So that was awakening for me.
I know our program is really focused on trying to make certain that we understand how we can continue to build a better workforce and have a good workforce development program. But you reminded me of an experience that I had in college. There was a older gentleman there that was part of the university, and he became a good friend. At least I would consider him a good friend. And I went to him one day, and I was a student. I went to him one day with this idea that I had. And I thought this was absolutely brilliant in my mind. I went to him and explained the idea, and he said, Ronnie, that is probably the silliest idea that I've ever heard. And like you, it broke my heart. Like, it was really tough. But what I admire in what you described in this friend that I had is it was important that someone was willing to tell us that. Someone was willing to say to you, at the risk of not being your friend any longer at that point, and tell you what you needed to hear. And it seems to me, from my experience in working in helping out in this workforce development, sometimes we need that kind of coach and mentor, someone that's willing to say, take a step back, let me help you along this journey. And they give good advice. Maybe not what we want to hear, but they give us good advice. So you remained friends with this mentor in person for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
What changed at that point? Like, what did you start to do differently? How did you change courses in a way that became productive?
Well, I realized that I needed to reach young people in a different sort of way. I need to come to them more than expecting them to come to me. I'm not saying I lowered my standards or expectations, but I had to find different ways to be able to reach them, to help them. Not as much as do as I say, sort of mindset.
That is really fascinating, Bobby. That's a level of self-reflection that I wish more people could have in leadership positions. And I was talking to someone earlier, sometimes as well, once people get into administration, office-related work, they lose that connection. And this is, in one of my companies, another side note, I was serving on the executive team, and in this organization, I was one of few people that would go interact with our warehouse workforce. They were good humans, first of all. They were just wonderful people building the product that we were selling out in the marketplace. But a lot of these other executives wouldn't go. If you asked one of our warehouse workers who the executives were, they couldn't tell you, except for me. But I learned so much from them. just being in their environment, asking them questions, and then at the same time giving them my time so they can express what they need to do a good job. It was extremely eye-opening.
Yeah.
And I suspect that having that kind of reverse, trying to build that rapport, giving them the level of respect that they need as a student, probably changed how you did things a lot.
It did. And, when you talk about mentors, and I may be jumping the gun here, and I've had good people who've given me exposure and opportunity along the way. And like you said, people have said things to me that I really didn't want to hear. I've benefited the most from. And listening to you talk made me think of another mentor of mine who used to tell me the truth all the time, but he provoked me to think about things that I wouldn't think of, but he also let me know that I was doing things the right way and I was on a good track when I didn't even know I was.
Wow.
And I can remember him saying something to me once. He's something with some students, and he said, "Bobby, how do you manage to deal with students when they're escalated?" And I said, "Well, Dr. Wan, I don't know. I just do it."
Right.
And he said, "Yeah, you do. You just don't want to talk about it." And I never forgot that. But he also would tell me when I wasn't doing what I could be doing.
Right.
So he was one of the ones who recognized my potential after I left teaching to become in management in Job Corps.
So you have to tell me this then. You've been there for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
You've had some great mentors and guidance. I suspect that you've helped a lot of people as well, not just your peers, professional peers, but also students. What's worked well at Job Corps and workforce development? You've been around 30 years and you've seen probably a lot of things happen, maybe some good and maybe not as effective as they could be, but why are you still there after 30 years? What is it that worked well that's kept you in this fight to do and build a good workforce?
Well, gosh, I hope this sounds all right, but I'm probably not the most talented person or never the smartest, but I am very curious.
Yeah.
And that makes me go. And I remain curious to this day. I want to learn about everything I can. I want to know. I like to get on the shop floor. I like to learn from people. I talk to people, but more importantly, I listen to people. I like new ideas. I like to do things different. And there's an old saying, either you grow or you go.
Right. So you said you were an electrician, is right. So my early days, I loved engineering. I went to school, started out in engineering. But I suspect that you're probably a tinkerer.
I am.
I get the sense.
I am, yeah.
So you're probably there at workforce development just trying to figure out how do you make it work.
Yeah. And you want me to respond to that?
Yes.
All right. So I was kind of waiting for that one. So, through the years, and again, I've been put in a lot of good places and opportunities. I had an opportunity when I was in California to serve on the Workforce Development Board in a key role, and I chaired the Youth Council in San Diego. So I had a chance to learn about the inner workings of workforce development from a non-Job Corps perspective. Sure. I found that to be fascinating, but I also picked up on why certain things weren't working the way they probably could. So I learned a lot from that experience there. So I think I have a feel from the Job Corps side, but the workforce side as well. And when I say workforce, for example, working with Texas Workforce Commission. But now here I've learned that third part, which is industry, from working with U.S. aviation, the aviation industry, of how all those pieces need to work together, can and should, but haven't always worked together for different reasons. I guess we can probably talk about that if from my perspective. Sure. And I heard somebody say earlier today that, and as a matter of fact, it was Maurice, that everybody has their own interests in it. And trying to get people to put aside their own special interests for the greater good for everybody is an ongoing challenge in workforce development.
I think what makes your experience unique as well is that you worked with the private sector, which is a critical component. So when we talk workforce development, we're not just talking government program or local government or federal government or even state government. We're not just talking about nonprofit. It truly takes a system working together, private industry, government, nonprofits. It takes an entire community to make sure that we're training people for the jobs that we need and that are available so that they can succeed in those jobs and deliver a good product. But what's unique in your experience as well, not just having those different areas, is that you've done it across the country. So I've heard already Detroit, Texas, California. Where else have you worked in this industry?
Ohio. Yeah, and I also spent a little bit of time up in Sacramento.
Okay.
A little bit of time down in Miami.
Oh, wow.
That was a short stint there. So, through the years, people have asked me to go different places and do different things. And I think that's given me an opportunity to see things in a different way, too.
Sure.
Remember, I'm from Detroit, Michigan.
Right.
And if you know anything about Detroit, Michigan, it's a different place. And I grew up there and without a lot of exposure to different things. So having the opportunity to move to different states was really an eye-opener for me in just so many ways.
Right. It takes a special person to feel comfortable with moving around the country that way and picking up, and I suspect this goes to your tinkering, but picking up in a new place and starting over again, but also using that experience to do well in those new locations. And so you're probably one of few that has such a global, at least across the country, perspective. So if you had to define where we needed to take workforce development next, giving your perspective across the country and across different segments that make the whole system work, what ideas would you give someone listening to the program about the evolution and the next steps for workforce development?
All right, you use the word evolution, interesting word, because more and more over the last 2 or 3 years, and I've studied workforce development for a long time, and I've always been intrigued by the European model.
Okay.
And, there's some European countries that have made workforce development work in a way that we haven't been able to do in our country. And I think one of the things is just education in itself where, and I'll use myself as an example. My dad was a career military person. He retired and went to work at Ford Motor Company in Detroit. And my dad told me when I graduated from high school that I didn't need to go to college.
Okay.
He said, you can make just as much money in the factory. You'll make more money.
Wow.
And it was true at that time, but I wanted to go to college, but I ended up working in the factory and ended up leaving that. But my point for that is the emphasis for everybody that you had to go to college as opposed to doing some other work that are good career choices, like becoming an airframe and powerplant mechanic, electrician, and with the way things are going now, technology, there's a lot of good opportunities in careers that don't require going to a 4-year university. Right. And I strongly believe, and that's probably because of my Job Corps experience with the population that we serve, that workforce is there and can be developed to contribute to the economy of this country. So that's my belief in what I think would benefit the future of this country. If we spent more time and effort towards steering people into other areas that would benefit themselves and the country.
Right. That's impressive. So I've been spending some time in Michigan. And speaking of the airlines, do you know one of the first commercial airline companies was from Michigan, and it was the Ford Motor Company. I don't think a lot of people realize they used to deliver our mail. And then Boeing came along and took over a lot of those responsibilities. But there's so much that came out of Detroit and Flint and Michigan from the Industrial Revolution and manufacturing. And you're right, they had great paying jobs, which is why they had such a huge migration there many, many decades ago. And I think they helped to make this country great when it came to providing wonderful jobs and a lot of training as well back in those days. So
it fueled the growth of the middle class in the United States. And that, as we all know, the middle class has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And I hope we get back to expanding the middle class in this country.
And which is why this conversation for us is so important. I know that there are a lot of people, the owner of Serrato Corporation, you, and others are trying to make sure that we leave a legacy that helps to rebuild those opportunities and jobs. I think probably one of the biggest unifying, liberating, freeing opportunities is to have a good quality job that people can raise a family on. And I think it's important that we get back there and making sure that those opportunities exist.
And as you know, those opportunities, like where I'm at right now, and this ties into this whole thing for me as well. You're familiar with McKinney, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that I talk about a lot is, for those who don't know, McKinney is a pretty affluent area, and there's all kind of job opportunities there. And I run a program in an area where my students who graduate, they can't even afford to live there.
Right.
They have to go back to the same area where they came from, that they really want to go back, don't want to go back to, but do a lot of good things, but still can't afford to move to an area like McKinney.
Right.
So bringing all those pieces together for higher wages, housing, and transportation for that population is very, very important for the future as well, and for the continued growth of areas like McKinney.
Right. Bobby Brown, thanks for sharing your knowledge, your insight, your history of working with people seeking job and career opportunities. I appreciate you still being in this 30 years later, trying to deliver success in your daily operations and leading workforce development operations. So I appreciate what you do.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and we're going to talk some more, right?
Absolutely. Well, you have to promise me that you'll stay in this fight and that you continue to help us leave a legacy in workforce development that prepares for this next generation of young people coming up.
Well, I tell you this, like I said, my dad was in the military for 20-something years. He's in Vietnam. And my dad used to tell me, don't ever let anybody outwork you.
I love it.
And I still carry that to this day. I won't let anybody outwork me.
I love it. If we can keep teaching that to the younger kids as well, just to not give up and to work hard and not leave on this side. No, we need to wrap up the program. But I have had several business leaders say this, and these business leaders have built really large companies. And what they say we definitely need to make sure people understand is that you can't have fear of trying. Like you've got to work really hard and find a way, no matter what, to reach your potential and success. But you can't be afraid to try.
Right. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the I Build America podcast. Please subscribe, share, and comment, and be sure to join us next time for more insights and inspiring conversations on building a powerful American workforce. I Build America, building workforce success one podcast at a time.
I build a